First of all, welcome to the Frontira studio. My name is Joanna Backus. Just short introduction about what we'd like to share today, and we hope that you find it useful, valuable, inspiring, and something that you can apply to your own work. So these are kind of like regular short sessions that we do in order to share some thinking, some business ideas, as well as some learning from our own practices. This is about AI and automation, as we all know, as we follow each other, as we follow everything. We're all kind of living in the age of AI, being at the front and center of discussions, good and bad. This is not what this session is about. As always, we are inspired by new enabling technologies as a positive and influential force in business. And since the launch of ChatGPT, which seems ages ago, but it actually wasn't, very new adjacent tech platforms filled with APIs, new interoperability with different tech stacks have made it a lot easier to implement generative AI and increasingly automation in business practices. We find this very interesting. We work with a lot of our clients on strategy, and that always includes some sort of digital transformation strategy. And we see the adoption of new technologies and new capabilities in optimizing current business is very much part of a digital transformation strategy. So what we find very interesting is actually the approach to automating business tasks that are repetitive, ongoing, need to be done on a regular basis, such as content marketing, competitive monitoring. And this is one of the use cases that we want to share with you today. And we want to focus on a specific use case to show you exactly how we got to the point of actually implementing new technologies in a specific process for a company, how we got to that, how we got to the automation process, and some of the platforms that we use and workflows that we've designed to be able to learn and share and maybe apply to your own business. I will be posting some useful links in the chat throughout the sharing sessions. One of the links will be to a mirror board that literally includes like a design sprint whiteboards that you can apply in your brainstorming, and a few other things that you could find helpful. So keep an eye out in the chat. Also, if you do have questions, please post them and I will raise them to the group as well as to our speaker, who is my partner, Stefan Erschwinder. So I would like to invite him right now to share some of the amazing work that he's done, a lot of the applicable learnings, and some of the more technological aspects that could also be valuable and useful, and some of the outcomes that we've experienced that are very positive. And so welcome again. We hope you find this interesting. And now I pass it on to Stefan.
Thank you, Joanna. So welcome everybody also from my side. As Joanna already explained, my name is Stefan. I'm managing partner of Frontira. Usually I spend most of my time helping clients in the area of strategy, implementation, or agility. But lately, together with the whole team, we've been diving extensively in the topic of AI and automation to help our clients generate new value. Maybe before we start with the specific case, a little bit of context why we believe that AI and automation is relevant, not just for the case study that we show you, but for your business in general. Here, just like 5 statistics that we usually share with our clients. Number one, you can see that AI and automation is impactful. Like there are estimates that 50% of the work that we are currently doing can actually be done by AI and automation. When we talk with our clients, and what we see from other studies is also that the early adopters are moving beyond pilot projects already. So there are positive results. You're going to see some of them later that they have experienced. So it's not a fad, it's not a hype. Companies are taking it for real. Approximately for the companies that are experimenting with AI and automation, they see that they can save up to 240 hours per year. Obviously, it's not just all about cost savings and increasing speed, but this, as we will see also later, is usually where companies are starting before they go into the area of generating additional value from it. In terms of value creation, we can see that with studies, especially in the marketing area, that you are able, with the help of automation and AI, to also increase sales by something like 14-15%, while at the same time you will also be able to cut your costs by almost the same amount. And what we find personally interesting is that small and medium enterprises, like 88% of the business owners, say that they feel with the help of automation and AI, they can actually compete with larger companies. So if you're a small business, this might be a great opportunity. If you're one of the established players, then you should really watch out for those guys. Often when we talk with our clients about AI and automation, there are some misconceptions that we have to address first. So this is why I quickly want to share those with you. So misconception number one is that a lot of clients actually believe that AI and automation is very expensive because they always hear about the NVIDIA H100 chips that cost $25,000, and they think that they need to compete with Facebook or Google or anybody else about those chips. This is not true because there is actually a software stack available for all of us. And as a small and medium enterprise, that would mean that maybe you need 350 euros a month and you can access automation and AI software, which will largely help you already. So that's a fraction of the cost and what the chips cost itself. Also, a lot of people think that it's very complex and time consuming to apply then AI and automation. Also, that is not true. In our experience, it's totally enough to do a 5-day AI design sprint that will actually give you enough time to implement the infrastructure for AI and automation and start actually then working on the first processes that are going to be automated and then run fully independent or partly independent from your workforce. Point number 3 is that a lot of people think that it doesn't work with their existing software stack. Also, this is actually not true because largely all software that you're going to use in your office already has APIs or will have the possibility to create interfaces to connect it. So no matter if you're using Microsoft 365 or the Google Suite or any other modern software, it's going to be able to connect it. If you're using older software, there are also various ways of how it can be connected. So also the connectivity problem is usually not a problem. A lot of people think that they don't have the right workforce to actually do that. You will see that AI and automation software is rather easy to handle. It's more about understanding the processes and the value and where to use it. That is actually critical, but we can also see from our own experience and from studies that almost 3/4 of the workforce is willing to actually upgrade, learn new skills, and improve their current skills. And the last one, people think that a lot of times it requires a complete overhaul of your processes, which is more like a black or white solution. Also, this is not true because one of the main advantages is that you can actually be very iterative when you work with AI and automation, meaning when you have a process that consists out of 8 different steps, you can start automating maybe step number 4 and 5 in the beginning and leave the rest how it is. It's absolutely no problem. Later, you can then decide if it makes more sense to go forward and integrate step number 6, or if you want to go backward and integrate step number 3 or 2, or whatever it is. So also that is usually one of the misconceptions, and we wanted to address it first. You know the graphic, usually it's like faster, better, cheaper, pick 2. You can't have 3. We believe actually the advantage with AI and automation is that you can get all 3 things suddenly. One thing that's important, and you're going to see that in our case study, which we're going to show you, is that we believe there is a significant difference of how companies are currently applying AI to their business. On the left side, you see something that we call like augmentation or prompt thinking, which means that you give individual employees access to an AI and they're going to use it, or AI tools, and they're going to use it for single tasks, which is all fine. It usually makes employees 20 to 30% more efficient, or you generate more gains over time, but it kind of like plateaus out because it always depends on the individual and if and how they're going to use it as the use case, meaning how good is your prompt. While on the right side, you see automated AI process, or more of a system thinking, meaning the complete processes are actually automated and enriched by AI. So they are either fully or partly removed from the workforce. And this basically means no matter if somebody is on holiday or somebody is sick or If it's midnight, those processes run all the time automated, and that will actually give you a leverage of 10 to 20x. And this is what we think is like super exciting for businesses. Obviously, if you're very smart, you combine the two approaches together, you get 10 to 20x from the processes that you're automating. And then for everything else that's left, you augment your existing workforce so that you get another 20 to 30% of business gains out of it. So diving into signmesh. So I wanted to quickly explain you what signmesh is. Signmesh is a trend and innovation platform. So the goal of signmesh is to research trends and insights on a global basis, structures the data, and then identifies interesting patterns and using those patterns to support clients in their marketing and innovation initiatives. That means signmesh on the one hand is like a data collector, then is processing data, and then needs to publish data either for existing client relationships or to create prospects. This is how signmesh roughly works. So as we said, trends gathering, trends processing, trends analysis, trends publishing. So we did a 5-day design sprint with signmesh to actually identify the opportunities for AI and automation within those processes and take a look at like where really the difference is, where you should start with automating stuff, how AI can actually help you, and where you can get the biggest gains out of it. And I will now take you through that. One thing that we believe is like really essential is understanding the processes, how things are flowing within your company, and where actually your value streams really are. Joanna, my colleague, did like a full webinar on our set of AI and automation canvases that we have. So we created a couple of canvases that allow us to actually go from a top line process journey mapping and specific pains and gains that we are addressing down to really the micro level of what happens in every step. What is the input? What is the processing? What is the output of every step? So we believe it's absolutely essential to do that because you will see that the software is rather easy to use. The main question is just like, can you identify the right processes where you use it? And can you structure the processes in the right way that you really get the main benefits out of it? So if you want to know more about this, then dive deeper into it. Long story short, here you see the signmesh value stream. So meaning that it's like a top line overview of what needs to be done at signmesh. And actually, we identified how much of the manual work currently goes into each of the different steps, starting on the left side from trends research, then going over to prepare summaries of trends, uploading trends to a CMS system or database, then creating different clusters of trends, then creating newsletters and reports, either for prospects or existing clients, then publishing those newsletters and reports, then generating additional reach via social media and engagement, and analyzing those needs and analytics from potential clients and customers. As you can see from the value chain, overall, it required signmesh 109 hours of manual work per week. This was before we started with the design sprint and implementing new processes. Afterwards, you see that below, we actually managed to bring that down to 22 people hours per week. So that means like roughly an 80% decrease of manual work that signmesh needs to do, or to say it in another way, we managed to save like 87 hours per week that signmesh can benefit from. Just that you have an overall understanding. So we're not going to all the process details in between, but at the end of the day, you need to understand what the value stream is so that you can identify it. Also, what you will see later from this value stream that consists out of 7 different steps that we analyzed, it does not mean that you need to start with step number 1, which is the trend research, to start automating it or applying AI. You should rather start where you can identify that you spend most of the time or where you can generate most of the value. In this step, it was mainly at the end of the process, meaning the newsletter and report creation and the publishing side of it. One thing that we believe is like really important also to do it, and it requires more like analytical thinking, is to set up like structured databases where you can actually then either store your data plus all the additional assets that you can actually make out of it, which is really essential to gain most value out of the automations. So that's like one thing that we usually set up for our clients. Here you just see an example how it looks for signmesh, meaning that each of the trends that they are going to track, you will find in a database in its own row. You will find the core assets that have been generated. And we will see later that also the core assets are going to be generated already by AI. But AI also gives us the possibility to generate additional assets and information about a specific trend. For example, like we're using AI to actually understand which company is mentioned in this trend or in this innovation that it's tracked. We're going to identify which target group it's supposed to be in the target. We are identifying in which geographic location this innovation is taking place, if it's global or specific to a market in Europe or North America. We are also trying to understand in which category this innovation is happening. So we are creating additional assets with the help of having structured databases. The way how the asset creation works, and I already briefly touched it before, is something that you're going to see on this diagram. And again, it's related to the 40 hours that were spent before per week to generate newsletters and reports, which have been cut down to just 6 hours. And what you can see here from the process is basically how the process will look in an automation software. And everything that you see here is then running automatically. It just gets triggered by one mouse click from an employee. And in this example, you can actually see that there is a trigger of a mouse click. It will then go over and look into the database and find specific information. It will then connect with the existing Google Drive from the signmesh team. It will generate a new folder there. It will generate a Google Doc within that folder, and then it updates the database about the Google Drive folder location and the document. It will then continue, and again, this all happens at the same time, and will start creating a report paragraph where it adds additional information and then closes the paragraph again. So that is basically the core workflow of generating a report. Next to this, it's going to generate a specific image that is going to be used also as an asset. So it generates an image that didn't exist before. It saves the image to Google Drive again. It generates an additional image, saves that again, and then it builds a PDF out of it. In this case, it's actually going to be a carousel for a LinkedIn post. It then goes and saves the document again and all the location. And here it does the same stuff with different images that are going to be created. And all of this happens automatically. Once it's set up, you just click one mouse click and it generates reports and assets automatically. So for generating the core report and the core flow that you've actually seen, what somebody needs to do manually is, in that case, just select the 5 most interesting trends for what signmesh is actually doing here. So you see somebody selected something from IKEA, from Barber, from Much Better, from SNCF, and from Mattel. So this is done manually because not everything needs to be automated. And signmesh believes that there is a huge value in the manual creation of the trends. And then basically with a mouse click, what it does is it runs the workflow that I just showed you and additional other workflows, and it generates a bunch of assets out of this. As you can see, image assets, reports, different image collages that can be used, but also, as you can see here, videos and animation that are going to be produced out of it, and even a podcast script is going to be produced out of it. And those are all additional assets that are going to be generated. The reason why we generate those assets is then for signmesh to have more flexibility in terms of publishing, because then out of those assets, signmesh generates additional social posts, as you can see here as an example, which are again stored in a database that you can work with them on a strategic level. So that means signmesh, or we in signmesh are using AI to enrich the asset production and the distribution as well. As you can see here in one example, it's generating additional assets. AI is generating additional assets to help with the summary of trends, meaning emojis, hashtags, some smart questions, some statements about it. Everything gets saved in a database again, but it can also be applied to audio, image, or podcasts. Like in the other case, it generates here a podcast script, it generates a podcast, generates images, uploads the podcast in terms of distribution already to SoundCloud, which then further distributes it to Spotify. And that also helps with the summary of the trends as well as with the topic of newsletter production and distribution. So fast forward. So what actually gets generated in terms of outputs, as I already said, the core of what signmesh does is it generates a report. Out of this report, we then generate additional assets going from podcasts to LinkedIn newsletters to Medium articles, LinkedIn articles, images, animations, but also LinkedIn carousel posts, presentations, or just complete regular newsletters. So out of one asset, we generate 9 additional assets. As I said, not everything is done fully automated because we believe in human quality control and curation in between. So there are always certain action buttons that are available for the signmesh team to trigger additional actions. And they can also select certain workflows depending on what they believe is the best step to get most of the action, most of the value out of the content is generated. As I said before, all the promotional pieces then again get stored again in a database that actually shows you the name, a publishing ID, what type of images is for which platform is going to be generated, when it was generated, and everything else. And then it generates the social posts to actually promote that. And all of that is done automatically. Now, maybe the most interesting part for you. So what are the outputs and what's the investment on this case? In terms of outputs, the whole system is running for signmesh already since 28 weeks. That means we have produced 28 reports. So like every week a report, 28 animations. With additional assets, we published 56 articles. We published 56 newsletters, regular newsletter and a LinkedIn newsletter. We generated more than 224 images. For image posts in total, we generated 539 social posts. And what we added later were podcasts. We also generated 9 podcasts automatically. All of that also with the help of automation and AI, we managed to increase the quality of what gets published in terms of the reports and the promotional pieces. We increased massively the consistency because everything runs all the time, every week. So it's independent if somebody is on holiday or if somebody's sick or any other kind of human error. And we also could increase the frequency of publishing massively because I think right now we're publishing something like 16 promotional pieces every week for signmesh. In terms of time savings, the 28 weeks times the 87 hours that we're actually saved every week rounds up to something like 2,400 hours already. If you then calculate that in days, you're a bit over 300 days that we saved in a little bit more than half a year. And that means like cost savings of 80,000 euro approximately for signmesh. If you compare that to the investment that signmesh took, it was a 5-day AI and automation design sprint with us, which is around 20K. Then ongoing fine tuning and bug fixing of actually the automations and improving the AI prompts, which is about 4,000 euros. And in terms of software, it costs something like 2,000 euros. So that means with a total investment of 26,000 euros, everything that you see on the left side got generated. That means signmesh had like a net gain in those 28 weeks of like 54,000 euros that signmesh saved. And it also means that their investment had an amortization of less than 2 months already. And of course, it's still running, it's still ongoing. So at the end of the day, it means when you look at the YouTube content model that now signmesh is able to generate most of the hygiene help and the hub content automatically, almost independent from humans. besides with a little bit of human curation that actually signmesh wants. And if you look at how much you should publish on the different social channels, then you see that usually it's quite a lot of posts that you actually would need to generate. But with an automated and AI enriched system like we set up for signmesh, it's no problem for companies to actually fulfill all those posting slots, which is actually the absolute minimum of what you should do if you want to interact with your customers. The technology stack quickly at the end, as we said, it's like not really complicated. So there was existing software that signmesh was using with like Buffer, MailChimp, or G Suite. Those all offer APIs anyway, so they're easy to connect. What you need to do is you need to connect an automation software in the middle. This is what we did in this case, make.com. You can then connect it with different AI software, whatever you would like to use. And then we connected it with additional new software for signmesh, which generated additional cost for a subscription, meaning like Placid to generate images or PDF to generate carousel posts or 11 Labs to generate audio files. But long story short, this is the technology stack. Looks way easier than what in most cases, people think that it could actually look like. And up till now, we had like no problem with any other connection of existing software. So not being compatible software-wise is definitely not an issue to hold you back. And also the software subscription prices are very moderate. Outlook. So what we can see from the projects that we did, and signmesh was one project, is that we see that AI is unfolding like other technologies in waves. And what we see at the moment, and what you could also see with the signmesh case, is that we're largely in wave number one, which is about time, cost, and efficiency. So basically making things faster, decreasing the cost, improving the efficiency. We already went a bit into wave number two, the topic of quality and better output. So we have more consistency, we have more frequency, we have better quality with the post, and we believe that there are still a lot more things that signmesh actually can do with the 50K that it saved already in this half a year. And that will actually also allow signmesh and us to move further to wave number three, which is about really thinking about new systems and a complete transformation, meaning rethinking how your business model works, what products and services you actually offer, and what additional services you can offer to generate additional revenue streams. And that was our signmesh case study rather quickly. If you're interested in the topic and if you want to hear more about what we are doing for different clients, then you can join us again in 2 weeks, where we talk about smart competitive tracking that we are doing for one of the largest retailers in Austria, different area, but I'm sure there are some interesting insights for you as well.